Hi everyone, welcome to the Stitch Sessions. Today's lesson is a follow-up to one of our Crochet Quick Chats all about creating raglan style garments. So today I'm actually going to break down how to create your yoke for your raglan garment, and specifically how to figure out the number of stitches you need in order to begin to create your garment. Now in today's lesson, I'm going to specifically talk about the square yoke. There will be a separate one on how to create a round yoke, so stay tuned for that. Now, here are some of the things you want to have on hand when you're trying to figure out your measurements. So the thing you need are measurements of the person that you're making this for. Now, here I've got my little toddler crochet garment sizing chart. You can find this on the Crochet Crafty website. Just check it out at crochetcrafty.com. And I am currently working on one for adult sizing. So this basically gives you all of the measurements from 2T all the way up to 5T. So these are for toddlers, but these are the exact same measurements you would look for if you are creating sweaters or garments for adults, okay? So you need to have that measurement on hand, and I'll tell you specifically the measurements you want to start with. So what we're going to do, today we are focusing on creating a square yoke. So the yoke is the part, the opening that goes around the neck, okay? Now, a lot of times you'll see people working on square yokes, but it's really a rectangular shape. So I'm actually going to break down both of them. So it all depends on the shaping you would like to have around the neckline. So first and foremost, I'm going to do kind of like what people would consider a traditional square yoke, which in fact is more rectangular. So I'm going to just draw here. This would be the opening of the sweater. So again, the raglan style garment is constructed from the top, usually the neck opening, and worked its way down. So this represents the neck opening of a square yoke, but I'm actually going to write rectangle because that's really kind of what it comes out to. And the yoke again is the opening for the head, okay? Now, this particular square, I call it, is just meant so that it sits a little looser, more of an oval type of feel on the person's body. So the first measurement, so these are actually, let me just break this down. The measurements you're going to want to have on hand, and you can look them up along here, are the following. The first one you want to have on hand is the back of the neck. Okay, so generally speaking, if we're looking at the garment here, that is this measurement here from side to side. Now, if you don't have the person on hand to take this measurement, if you've got a garment that they wear, you can simply take that measurement. And so this is the back of the neck here. Okay, that's basically, if you've got that measurement to start off with, that's already loads for you to get started on creating your yoke. Okay, so we want the back of the measurement. So let's use an example here. Let's look down our list here. So on this list, it's called the neck width. Okay, so I would just follow who I'm making it for. So let's say I'm making it for 2T. I would say the neck width, and that's 3.5 inches or 9 centimeters. Okay, so if we were to go down to a 5T, it's about 3 3/4 inches or 9.5 centimeters. So whatever your measurement is, you want to figure out, so if I have 9 centimeters, so if I have 9 centimeters across the back of the neck, I need to figure out how many stitches can I get to give me 9 centimeters. So this is where it's important to do like a really quick little swatch. So I would get your yarn and do as many chains as you can until you reach the width or the length of the 9 centimeters. Now, in fact, what I would recommend is chain up the length and then actually do another row of double crochets, because once you do a row after the chain, that's going to give you the proper gauge for on average how many stitches is it going to give you. So I'm just going to use an example here. Let's say I chained my length and I know that gives me 20 stitches. So I now know that 20 stitches or 20 chains will give me the back of my neck measurement. So once I've got that number, I can figure out how many chains to go all the way around. So essentially what we're looking for is we need to figure out how many chains to create the whole starting row of my yoke. Yeah, so right now I know I've got 20 stitches across the back. So now we need to figure out how many stitches I need for my shoulders, and then how many stitches I need for the front. Now, if we're working with a square yoke, 20 stitches in the front, 20 stitches in the back will be the same as in the front. Now this is assuming that we are creating a pullover. If you are creating a cardigan, you're going to have to leave an opening at the front. Okay, so let me just move over here and create one for a cardigan. So a cardigan yoke will look like that, right? So if this is a pullover, it will be a continuously working in the round. If you're working on a cardigan, you're now going to have an opening. So my back of neck would still be 20 stitches. And now because you've split the front in half, you would have 10 and 10. But because a lot of times people are going to do a trim row for the opening, a lot of times people will take away a stitch here. Sometimes they might even take away two, depending on how thick you're going to make your trim, but I just kind of take away one. So in fact, you're going to have 9 and 9 stitches here. So now you've got 18 stitches in the front if you count these in total. Okay, so it's basically the same idea: closed yoke, cardigan yoke. Okay, so just taking away one. Now we're going to figure out the sides here on the shoulder, and this is where, for me, this becomes more rectangular. This is the general formula I see a lot of people use. On average, most people would take the number of stitches across the back and take about 3/4 of that number. So about 75% of these stitches. So if the back of my neck, so you might need a trusty calculator here, is 20 and I take 75%, that's going to give me 15 stitches in total. So that's how I work out how many stitches to work up along the side. Now, for those that are working on a cardigan, the same formula would still apply. However, sometimes I see people do this. They take the number that they used for the front panel, which is half, so it's 10, and then they add half of that number. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. So 10 plus 5 is 15. And guess what? It's the same number of stitches. Now again, because there's an opening here, some people would actually take the 9 number, and half of that is 4.5, which actually equals 13.5. So it's a little bit of a discrepancy, but it's completely up to you how much drape you want this to drape over your shoulders. So that's why there's a lot of give and take in working out these numbers. So both of these methods work just fine. In fact, because there's an opening at the front, you're going to get a little bit more give here. So whether you use 15 or 13.5 is completely up to you. Okay, so now for your square yoke, we know that we've got 20 stitches in the front, 20 stitches in the back, and 15 stitches on each side, but we're not done. The raglan design requires us to have increases in each corner. So that means you've got to add an additional stitch in each corner in order to have a spot to create those increases. So that's going to give us an additional 4 stitches. Now, those of you that created my Pretty and Puffs cardigan that I did for a toddler, I used a similar formula, so you may kind of be already familiar with this. And that, again, was more of that square / rectangular shape. So now let's count up the total number of stitches we need. Okay, so if I have 20 in the back, 15 on the side, 20 in the front, 15 on the other side, when I add those up, I have a total of 70 stitches. So that's how many stitches I would need to create a square yoke. Now again, this is more of a rectangular fashion. So the same thing would be here if I were working it out for my cardigan. So if I did, let's say 13.5. Now a lot of times these 0.5s, we round them up or round them down. So more often than not, if I took that measurement, most people would count it as 13 and 13. So now if I did the cardigan, I would start with the back is 20 stitches, the side is 13, the front is 9 with another 9, and then another 13 on the side, which would give me a total of 64 stitches. So you see you require, whoops, I almost forgot my corners. So I've got 1 on each corner. Okay. So that would be an additional 4, which would actually give me 68 stitches in total. So you see how it just slightly deviates from the pullover to the cardigan, but not by much. Okay. So guys, that is basically it on how to begin figuring out the number of chains you need to create your square yoke. Now, I'm going to do one more thing here, and I'm going to talk about a truly square yoke. And so some of you might go, wow, that's a lot easier because a square is a square. It looks the same. It's actually, the length is the same on each side, okay? But again, this just gives you a little bit more relaxed fit by creating a slightly longer length on each side. But I have seen people do true square yoke, so I just want to cover that as well. So again, we're going to use the same example. If you have 20 stitches, guess what you're going to do? 20, 20, and 20, okay? So you would then add 1 on each corner, okay? And that would be an additional 4. So now we've got 20 stitches on each side plus 4 would now give you a total of 84 stitches to begin. Okay, now this is really, I should kind of preface this, especially if you're starting off with the square yoke. Now some people might feel like, ooh, 20 stitches for the shoulders is a lot. But here's the thing you want to be careful when you're doing the closed yokes for pullovers. You want to make sure that this opening goes over the person's head. And that's a common mistake that happens, is that people only measure like the tight length of the back of the head. So when you're making a perfect square, it might not fit over the person's head. And I have done this mistake. Boy, oh boy. I completed the whole garment, and then the person's trying to fit it over their head. And this measurement is to their neck, close to their neck. So when you're doing things like this, if you're going to do a perfect square or a rectangle, that is a pullover, I would always feel free to add another couple of centimeters. Like I would add a full inch here. So maybe I would add another 5 stitches here. And here I would add another 5 on each side. Okay. Because remember, as you crochet, it does kind of come in. So big thing to remember, and I'm going to talk a lot about this when we discuss the round yoke openings. So this is the first part on how many chains you need to create your yoke. Now, in the next section, I'm going to talk about how do you know when to close off your sleeve openings. So let's move on to that. Okay, so we're going to talk about how do we know when it's time to close off our sleeve openings. So first of all, let me get my handy dandy artistry skills out here. When you've finished doing a whole bunch of rounds, so you've got your opening here, okay, and you've done your increases in your corners. Okay, again, fabulous artistry here. So your work is going to look something like this, right? So this is how it looks like. And then eventually what happens is you're going to fold this in half so that you get something that looks like this. And that's where the increases were, right? And there's the back along there. Okay, so once you fold this in half, you now have a garment that looks like this. And of course, if you had a cardigan, you'd have an opening down the center. So we need to figure out, well, when do I know to stop creating my yoke and then actually crochet this opening together to create my armholes? We want to make sure we've got enough room for the person to fit their arm through and for it to fit nicely. So this is where the next measurement is really important. So in fact, you need kind of two measurements. You need your chest measurement, and then you need the armhole depth, which is actually this right here. So that's basically from the collar to here. Okay, so a lot of times people would count this, but again, remember, this will drip over the shoulders, so I like to create the measurement from here. Some people kind of are unsure about how to gauge this measurement, so that's why you'll never go wrong by using the chest measurement. Okay, so for my size, let's say we picked 2T. I'm going to reference my chart. So if you're doing this for an adult, you just simply want to find the chest measurement. So I know that that's 22 inches or 56 centimeters. Okay. So what I'm going to do, when I think that I've got enough rounds, I'll fold it in half and I'll measure from one end to the other. And in my case, I'm looking for 56 centimeters. So if I've only got 54 centimeters, let's say, I'm going to go, I need another couple of rounds. So then I go back and I continue to do more rounds. Now, I always like to err on the side of a relaxed fit. So let's say I eventually do get exactly 56 centimeters. I might still do another round or two just to keep this sleeve opening nice and relaxed. So I might do another 4 centimeters. Like, I like to add at least another inch. Once I get that chest measurement, now remember the chest, sorry, I need to back up here. Remember that the chest measurement is the circumference all the way around. So whatever measurement you get here, you have to divide it in half, right? So that way you know exactly what the measurement is from one end to the other. So this is just basically the front panel. So we would be measuring basically the side, which is there, okay? So they are counted. So really, I would have 28 centimeters. And then of course I would add maybe another 4 centimeters. And so in this case, maybe once I reach 32 centimeters, that's where I'm comfortable. Now I'm going to keep my work folded, and when I crochet, I'm going to crochet and connect these two sides together. And again, if you watch that Pretty in Puffs tutorial, you'll see the technique I use to actually join these two together. Once you crochet these two ends together, you will now continue to crochet in the round, and then you'll just, that part's super easy, and then you just keep working down until you create the length of your garment, okay? So then your garment will look like that. Okay, this might be a little taller. And again, if you're working on a cardigan, then your garment will have an opening here. Now this is where it comes to my next measurement you will need, which is back to waist. Okay, so the back to waist is the measurement you take from the back of the neck all the way to the waist. Now, depends on where you want your garment to stop. So if you generally want it to sit around the waist, then you would look up the measurement here. So back to waist is 8.5 inches or 21.5 centimeters. So that's how I know, because then the next question is going to be, well, how many rounds do I keep going until I'm done the body of my garment? So I need that back to waist measurement. And again, if you want to create yours to sit below the waist, then at least you know once you reach, like in my case, 21.5 centimeters. If I know I want it to sit a little bit lower from the waist, like maybe just around kind of the hip area, then I know at least to get to 21.5 centimeters and then add a little bit more, especially if you decide later on you're going to add a trim that will also give you some length. Okay, so that's the next measurement. So you've initially taken the back of the neck. So let me come back here. So the first thing you need is understanding the back of the neck measurement. So you have your stitch count. That is what begins everything. Okay, and then understanding how to calculate for a cardigan, perfect square, rectangle, or pullover. Okay, and then from there, the next measurement you want to have is your armhole depth and the chest. And you can use either or there. So whatever armhole depth that you check out, then you just measure, take your measurement, and if it reaches that, then you know to close off. Otherwise, the chest for me I find is the easiest because I can play a little bit there. And the other measurement is the back to the waist, okay? And I'm going to put up a screenshot there up on the screen of the list of the different measurements you need before beginning a project. And if you check out the website at crochetcrafty.com, I will also put up a list of measurements you'll need before you begin any raglan style project. And what I'll do too is I'll leave a link for it in the description box down below to make it a lot easier. Okay. Now, before I leave you all, there is one more measurement that you have to know, and that is your sleeve length. Okay, so now if you are creating sleeves, that's going to be very important. If you are deciding to create something like a vest, or you just want to create a short sleeve, then you don't even need to worry about it. You would just start crocheting around the opening and just kind of use a few rounds and see how you like the length, and you're off and running, right? And then of course the square yoke, then you would crochet a little trim here, and eventually, for those that want to, you can round, this will eventually get rounded out, and then you'll have more of a rounded opening there, okay? So the sleeve length, now this is also known as underarm to wrist. So the sleeve length is known as underarm to wrist. So that means, whoops, actually let me go back to here. That means the measurement you're looking for is from under the arm here to the wrist. Okay, so you're going to be basically, once you're finished the body, you're going to pick up your garment, and actually I did that incorrectly. Really, because when we crochet, we're crocheting it straight across there. So that measurement from the underarm to the wrist, ooh, what beautiful artwork I'm creating here for you guys, is really important. So in our case, the underarm to the wrist is 9 inches or 23 centimeters. Okay, so I would just now start crocheting around that opening in the round. And I would do as many rounds as I need until I reached my length. Now again, if you want your sleeves to sit a bit longer, like not right at the wrist, you can make it longer, or you can make actually your cuff wider. Okay, so there's always ways around that. And that's the length that you would go by. So again, I always like to make mine a little longer because see, this part here is going to kind of bend over a little bit. And it also depends if you made the chest wider, which I like to do, that usually creates a little drop over the shoulder. So see, that way this sleeve it's got a little bit more flexibility to drape nicely over the shoulder, and then your sleeve is going to look a little bit more uniform, okay? And that is basically it. I know it was a lot of calculating and a lot of chatting, but I like to give people the tools to help figure out how to work the design. And this way, once you've got these tools, you can create your own design. So like maybe you want to create a sweater using, you know, your favorite colors or a different type of stitch. If you understand how to work the stitch count, you're off to the races in creating your very own raglan garment. So guys, I hope that you've enjoyed this little tutorial lesson. And if you have any questions, maybe you feel if I've glossed over a topic too quickly, or you want a little bit further clarification, please do pop me a comment in the comment box down below, or reach out to me directly at info@crochetcrafty.com. You guys know I'm always happy to help you out. And also, let me know if you'd like me to make a video on the Crochet Quick Chat series so that you have like a permanent reference to refer to for any other questions that you may have, okay? So in the meantime, if you're new here and you like this type of tutorial, make sure to press that subscribe button, because that way every time I upload a new one, you'll be in the know for what's going on. And in general, whether you're new or you're one of my regular gang, if you like these types of lessons, give me a thumbs up. And that always reminds me and lets me know the type of material you guys like to see on this channel. Okay? In the meantime, guys, I look forward to seeing you in the next session where we'll be creating some fabulous fun projects. Have an amazing day. Happy crocheting and take good care. Bye-bye.